Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we actually made the switch over from the BlueStacks client over to Steam. So keep an eye out, let me know how it looks, how it feels. Does this feel, from a player experience, it feels a little bit crisper, but let me know what it looks like, how it feels, if the overall viewing experience is relatively the same. And so today we have a second day of the featured location, and this is one of the rare times where I'm not ready for it to go away. Sometimes whenever a featured location is too impactful, at that point it gets to a point where you feel like you have to run a particular deck. It puts you in a very particular path, and you're just ready for it to not be featured anymore after maybe the first day and a half. But this one, as I continue to play it, I continue to kind of refine a little bit. So yesterday I said that there wasn't really a great deck that you could utilize to really manipulate this location, and to an extent that's true. But there is one that is incredibly fun to run whenever this location is in effect, and that's going to be our Agatha control deck. And so as you might have seen, I accidentally gained about 30 to 40 cubes testing this deck out. I was going to test it out in a lot of different shells, and I ended up climbing an insane amount. The amount of 4 cube and 8 cube games that this deck is able to sneak away is insane. And so I did run a version of this on our launch live stream, but this one has been refined just a little bit. And so I'll go through all of the cards in it, but overall it is such a satisfying experience whenever you send them and Agatha into their hand through the Daily Bugle, because Agatha will always start in your hand. So if it flips on the first or second turn, you have about a 25% chance at that point to send Agatha to them. And at that point it takes over their deck. It's not going to be optimized to run an Agatha. And so then you could just see it completely get obliterated. And so very, very fun utilization. This deck list will perform well even outside of this featured location, but I wanted to run it today because of that interaction where you send them an Agatha, and it is one of the most satisfying things I have ever done. So first up, we have Quicksilver. Quicksilver is a card that I don't think I've ever ran in a deck before. It's a 1-cost 2-power card, and it always starts in your opening hand. So a lot of times this prohibits you from drawing into some of your bigger, better plays. But in the context of this deck, it makes sure that we have a turn 1 or a turn 2 play, and then we can focus on drawing into our Wave, our Lady Sif, those other pieces afterwards. And now you may ask why run this instead of Domino, which is kind of the 2-cost version of this card. The reason that I ran it personally is that if we draw into something like the Hub, if we get Daily Bugle and we get a 1 or a 2-cost card, we want to be able to have Agatha play that card before turn 3, so that it's not going to be competing card drop potentials between our Lady Sif, our Wave, and that additional card. And so some scenarios, it is going to benefit you to have this out of your hand on the first turn, and then if you draw into one of those random cards, Agatha will play that one as well. But overall, if Quicksilver has a home, I think it's probably this one, because you do have that additional card draw. Agatha always starts in your hand, so you always start with an additional card. And then we have a deck thinner in Jubilee, and so by the end of the game, we're always going to be able to potentially do a 50-50 flip on whatever Jubilee pulls into. And so by having Quicksilver out early, it's not going to prohibit us from having any of our big combos later. And then next up we have Wave. Wave is in this deck to be able to cheat Agatha out on the board early. So for those of you that don't know, the core card in this list is Agatha. Agatha is going to start in your opening hand, so she's an additional card to your normal starting hand size, and she will play your cards for you. So if you've had the unfortune of drawing into an ego location, Agatha is basically a miniature individualized ego, and so she will play your cards randomly throughout the board, most of the time not in an optimal way. And so this deck list does a couple of things to make sure that we can get the usage out of her and make her as efficient as possible. And so if Agatha can play a card, she's going to choose one not necessarily the most energy efficient, and so because of that, we have the 1-cost that we're always going to drop on the board. After that, we don't want anything else competing for that 3-cost slot. Because if we have Wave, if we have Lady Sif, we want those to be the number 1 priority drop. And if we have other competing cards, she might drop those instead of one of those two, which will keep her in her hand longer. It gives her more turns and more opportunity to make poor plays. And so that is why we have a 1-cost, and then it feeds over into 2 priority 3-cost drops, and then after that it's our 4, 5, and 6-cost drops. And so as far as Wave is in this deck list because once you play her, she's going to reduce the cost of cards in both players' hands down to 4. If we drop this Agatha will always play herself whenever possible, and so by dropping everything down to 4, Agatha will guarantee that she plays herself on turn 4. That gives us control back in on turn 5 and turn 6, which in that time, we can do a lot of positive things for the board. And then we also have Lady Sif. Lady Sif flowed a little bit better when she was a 2-cost drop, but even at 3, she's okay. If we drop Lady Sif on 3, that can curve into a Ghost Rider on 4, and then we have turns 5 and 6 to drop whatever power we need to, wherever. And she fulfills the requirement of guaranteeing that we can get rid of Agatha. Because the way that this deck is built, our highest cost card is always going to be Agatha, unless it's turn 6, and at that point, you should probably have already retreated if you still have Agatha in your hand. But Lady Sif is going to guarantee that she discards the highest cost card from your hand, which should always be Agatha, unless you have some kind of RNG element that draws you in a death. Otherwise, Agatha should be the priority and primary target from our Lady Sif. That way we can take over control. The rest of the pieces in this deck are just here to kind of work towards that consistency. So Jubilee will act as a deck thinner, so sometimes we're going to need to draw into our Taskmaster, or maybe we really need to flip into a Shang-Chi to be able to swing and win a lane. Same thing with Enchantress. With Jubilee, we can drop this on the final turn, and we have a 50-50 flip on what card that draws into, and so sometimes that's where it's sticking around and playing to those odds, because at that point it's a coin flip. If you've already made it that far, you've invested cubes, it might be worth doing a coin flip for a potential win condition in that lane. And then we have Ghost Rider. If Lady Sif is the one that discards and gets rid of Agatha, Ghost Rider will be able to resummon that 14 power presence back onto the board. And so for a 4 cost, we can get 17 power, which is massive. That is a massive turn 4. As long as they don't have a Shang-Chi, it's going to be really hard for them to win that lane after that point. And then we have Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is going to be able to counter any large power plays. So a lot of times we can either position ourselves to not have initiative going into that final turn, or some people will get greedy once we drop a wave and they will drop a big destroyer early. They'll drop a big card onto the board that we can then target with our Shang-Chi to be able to swing that lane in our favor when they were probably counting on it as a win condition. And then we have Drax. So Drax in this list at a 4-cost drop feels kind of bad, because most of the time you're going to use your turn 4 play for an Agatha, but with a 4-cost drop, and if we drop Sarah on turn 5, we can now drop 2 4-cost cards on turn 6, so that means an Enchantress or a Shang-Chi or both. And then we could also drop a Drax. So we can do a combination of a Shang-Chi to swing a lane and then a Drax to make sure that we win the other lane by pushing some additional power there. And it offers a really high amount of power for us on the board, and it's really hard to compete with whenever we get it set up in just that perfect way. And then we have Enchantress. Enchantress is here to counteract those Patriot decks, those Cerebro decks, the really strong Onslaught, Omega Red, Iron Man decks, Wongs. It's going to prohibit a lot of that upside and make sure that it is focused on us and winning those games. And a lot of times it can be a surprise turn 6 drop where we destroy their Patriot, Mystique, and Onslaught, and all of a sudden their 40 power lanes go down to a 15 power lane. All of a sudden it is back within that range of where we might be able to win at that point. And then we have Taskmaster. Taskmaster is here, so if we draw into the wave path, if we drop wave on 3, Agatha on 4, Taskmaster is going to be a huge turn 5 play. Coming in and copying Agatha's 14 power presence onto the board is huge. That gives us 2 really big pushes in another lane, and then that allows us to use one of our tech cards in one of the other locations to try to make sure that we lock down 2 of those lanes. But 14 power in 2 different lanes by the end of turn 5 is usually pretty formidable. There's some deck lists that don't end up pushing that much power during the entirety of the game, and so having that much early, as long as they don't have a Shang-Chi, mind you, is really, really strong. And then we have Sarah. For 1, we have a cute Sarah variant, but for 2, she's going to reduce the cost of cards in our hand by 1. This will allow us to drop 2 priority cards on turn 3. So if we have Agatha already on the board, so maybe we did a Lady Sif, on turn 4 we did a Ghost Rider to re-summon Agatha, or maybe even we held that and we just did something else onto the board. We do Sarah on 5, we can now do a Ghost Rider and a Drax on 6. We can do a Ghost Rider and a Shang-Chi. We can offer a lot of board presence by reducing the cost of those cards by just 1. And then we have Chavez. I have found that a lot of games I don't play Chavez. Chavez is a okay drop. She comes in at 9 power, but that is going to be the only thing that you can drop on turn 6. So if we end up going with the Taskmaster path, sometimes you're going to want to drop Chavez on 6. But the primary goal for her in this list is to help us draw into our other pieces more consistently. So we want to do everything in our power to help draw into Wave, to help draw into Lady Sif, so that we can discard our Agatha on turn 4 as often as possible, so that we can regain control. If we leave it up to Agatha, odds are we're going to retreat, we're going to lose at that point. But by having this and then a few of the other elements that we have in our list, it becomes a lot more consistent to be able to push this way. And then finally, we already touched on it, we have Agatha, a huge power card for a 6-cost drop, but she has the downside that she will play your cards for you. She has the positive side that she starts in your hand, so you have an immediate deck thinning potential, which lets you draw into your other combo pieces much more consistently. And with only having 12 cards in a deck, having one of those automatically removed increases your draw potential drastically. And so then you find yourself drawing into those other combo pieces much more consistently by having that plus America Chavez working in your favor. But that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to go ahead and jump into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so first up we have Tongari. And the first location was the Daily Bugle. We do have Lady Sif that will discard our Agatha. There's a 25% chance that they drew into Agatha as their card. We drew into their Shang-Chi, so we know that they have a Shang-Chi. Overall, if we didn't know that they had a Shang-Chi, I would say that we go ahead and snap, we take advantage of this kind of advantage. But since they could potentially kill our Agatha, I think we hold off for now. And so they end up playing a Hood into the Daily Bugle that will give them a 6-power demon token. We'll kind of keep an eye on how they play or where they play, so that we can see if we can find if we can figure out if they did draw into our Agatha, which is always really funny to see when that happens. But as this next turn is loading in, if you guys are not currently subscribed and you're watching the video and you enjoy daily deck builds, daily Marvel Snap content, and you're enjoying this video, definitely consider subscribing. We were putting in the grind time to come up with completely different deck ideas each and every day, and so it helps the channel grow. We have recently shot up past 4,000. We're at 4,371, which is phenomenal. If you guys help support us, we're reaching almost that 5,000 channel milestone, which I didn't think was going to be possible at all for our stream, or has blown every expectation that I have had for content creation out of the water. And so that 5,000 is going to be a huge, monumental milestone. And so if we hit that, I want to try to schedule and do something special. So if you're not subscribed, very long spiel ending shortly, or I guess kind of long still. If you're not subscribed and you're enjoying the content, definitely consider subscribing. And so we do get to play our Agatha Harkness into the Savage Land. They didn't play an Agatha once we waived, so we know that they do not have Agatha. That is not the card of ours that they drew into. But we don't have Sarah either. What cards are left in our deck? We have America Chavez. Actually, I think we do Taskmaster here. We can do Taskmaster here, and then we can drop a Shang-Chi into Monster Island lane as a way to take out their... It's just their monster, though. Ooh, that doesn't feel great. So maybe we do Taskmaster here, and then we look at maybe potentially doing something over here. I don't know. Maybe we still need a Shang-Chi into Monster Island. It just depends on how much power they push and where. But overall, I think Taskmaster is the play. That's going to be another 14 power onto the board, which is massive. 2 turns in a row pushing 14 power is huge. So they do let their Jessica Jones buff up. She is just under a Shang-Chi range. Now we would be able to get the monster, so that does give us a little bit of hope. They're currently below us in Savage Land. We have our Chavez, so it's a 9 power play depending on how we drop it and where we drop it. They have 5 power to make up here, they have 6 power to make up here, and then they have 3 power to make up here. We know that they have Shang-Chi. They do Shang-Chi here, and then a big push here. I don't think they would have pushed this much power if they were planning on doing Shang-Chi in this lane. So I think they Shang-Chi this lane, and so that would leave them with 9, a lot. That'd be hard to compete with. So in that case, do we just throw Drax into the Daily Bugle and hope for the best? Because if they Shang-Chi here, we can't compete. All we're clearing is 1. They would clear both of ours. So I think we lock in. We do Drax to the left-hand side. That's going to be our best bet. Depending on where they drop their Shang-Chi and if they can overcome power here and here. Yep, the Shang-Chi mid is kind of on. It is kind of what we anticipated. The Mysterio play to the left and the right. So that's 5 to the right potentially. No, it's 5 to the left. They can't come over our power in Savage Land. They can't beat us in the Daily Bugle. We end up locking it down because we had the information from the Daily Bugle that they had a Shang-Chi in hand. So that really kind of structured where we were going to push that last turn power. And it's the reason we shifted away from doing our own Shang-Chi in Monster Island. It allowed us to find that win condition by dropping a card into the Daily Bugle. And so the first one up, a 4-cube collection. Let's go ahead and see if we can kind of keep that going. Like I said, guys, we accidentally gained about 40 cubes just testing this deck out because all of the games seem to go to like 4-cube games, 8-cube games, because there are so many different elements, and if you can outthink the opponent, you can position yourself to gain a lot of cubes very quickly. All right, so next up we have Sky Gala, and the first location is the Vault. So we end up playing our Quicksilver. We don't have either Wave or Lady Sif in hand yet. That is one of our big like potential win conditions, is if we have that in our hand early, and we do now have Wave. Which is great. That is exactly what we needed. If we don't draw into Lady Sif, we can guarantee that Wave will get played. Agatha will play herself naturally on 4. We can potentially do a Taskmaster on 5 into a counter card potentially on 6. And so let's go ahead and see how this one plays out. The Vault is going to lock down on turn 6, but the Starlight Citadel is going to shift the locations after this turn, so we don't know exactly where is going to get locked down just yet. They do the 3 Mysterios, so we don't know which one is which. I'm going to guess Lemuria. For some reason, I feel like it's going to be in the Lemuria lane. Now, we do have an Agatha and a Taskmaster, so we're going to be able to push 14 power here, and one of those two is going to be locked down on turn 6, so we don't have to worry about that particular one on that final turn as being a potential risk at getting destroyed. The Doc Ock is a play. It pulls into our Shang-Chi, which does end up destroying their Doc Ock, which is huge. They're now 20 points behind in this lane. If our estimate, or our, I guess, if our guess was correct, I don't know. I don't know if Taskmaster is going to copy. Oh no. I don't know if Taskmaster will copy Agatha or Shang-Chi now. I want to say it's Agatha because that's the last one we played. And so on reveal, it copies the power of the last card that you played, not that was placed or played for you. But either way, it's a gamble. We're gonna go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's see if we can find. Okay, yeah, we found out. It does copy the Agatha. They play a Hood over there, so it looks like they're just committing to losing that lane, and then they're gonna try to win one of these other two. So right now we assume that they have 6 power here. If they have a Shang-Chi, then I think we lose regardless, right? Do we split our power? Yeah, I think we split our power. If they do a Shang-Chi mid, that's 4 cost. They only have 2 left to spend, so then they would have to get an additional 7 in Lemuria with 2 energy. It feels impossible. If the real Mysterio was over in Lemuria, could be possible at that point. But still, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be a really particular play line. They couldn't do something like a Killmonger to trigger the Nova. It puts them in a really tough position. And so with that 2 cube, let's go ahead and rinse and repeat. We'll jump into the next one. All right, so next up we have Tresquin, and in our starting hand we have the Quicksilver, we have Wave. The only bad thing is if we draw into Lady Sif by turn 3, by the time that Wave gets dropped, because of Titan, our Agatha is actually going to have competing highest cost card play potential. Now, we do draw into an Enchantress of theirs. They draw into a card of ours. It could be Agatha. We're gonna hope that it's Agatha. That's what we're gonna snap on. They could have drawn into our Wave or our Sarah. Our Sarah may benefit them, but most likely it doesn't help them as much as it helps us. And so we will go with the Wave play as long as we don't draw into Lady Sif here, which is perfect. So the Wave will always, with Wave, no matter what cards we have in hand, Agatha is always going to play herself whenever possible. And so that we're going to guarantee that we get rid of Agatha next turn. If they drew into our Agatha, they will actually play it onto the board themselves, but it gives us a really big target for a Shang-Chi play, if that is what they ended up drawing into. So they dropped Bishop. They're going to drop a card. Ooh, so it's Rescue. So they did not draw into our Agatha. You know that they either have Enchantress, Wave, or Sarah that they can play on 5 here. This comes up to 9 cost. I actually think we play our Sarah into a different lane. We split a little bit of power across the board. This is going to be a good target for Shang-Chi because Rescue gets just within that 9 power range if they play a card after her on that next turn. So I think we drop Sarah. That way we can do 2 cards. We can do Shang-Chi and something else. So Shang-Chi and a Drax, Shang-Chi and an Enchantress, Shang-Chi and a Jubilee if we feel like we have a really big power potential card we can draw into. Because we are going to have it down within 2. And so we know it's going to either be Taskmaster that we could draw into or our Lady Sif. So it's either Taskmaster or Lady Sif that we draw into. I don't think it's worth running or gambling on it. But I think what we do drop is a Shang-Chi here that will destroy their Rescue. I think it gives us enough of a push or enough oomph that we can win this lane. And then I think we push Drax into the far left. I think they probably drop a Killmonger at some point on this turn to be able to trigger their Nova and push power to the other cards. Either that or they drop a Carnage to destroy this lane, at which point we get the upside from Drax. We hope that this is not the real Mysterio. That would put them still within close range even after a Shang-Chi play. But it does come down to a gut read. We have it laid out and we have a pretty good power spread. So I think it's worth potentially risking those extra 2 cubes to see that final end result. And so they do play 3 cards on the final turn. So Bishop is going to get up to 9 after everything flips. Our Drax is going to buff up. They do drop the Carnage. Weird that they didn't drop the middle and the right card before the Carnage. Because then those would have gotten buffed up from the... Oh, that's why. That's why they dropped it in that order. And so it comes down to where the real Mysterio is. Since the real Mysterio was in Daily Bugle and not the Raft location, we are able to hold on to our lead just barely. So a lot of these games are very, very close. And so that is why you see a lot of 4 and 8 cube games, because it doesn't feel out of the opponent's reach. They had a potential win. They had a good power push on that final turn. Ours was just a little bit luckier or a little bit better. And so very fortunately for us, we were able to hold down the win in both the Titan and the Raft location. All right, so next up we have Bayo. I don't think that's bad. I think that's an O and not a D. So I'm gonna pronounce it Bayo. If you're in the video, if you're watching the video, Bayo, and that is not how you pronounce it, please let me know and I'll correct it for next time. But next up we have Bayo. In our starting hand, we have our Lady Sif, so we're at least going to be able to guarantee that we get rid of Agatha by turn 3 or on turn 3, so that we regain control on turn 4. We also have Wave, which depending on what play line we draw into, Wave has some advantages in like the Taskmaster route. Lady Sif has some advantages in the Sarah route in being able to drop a Ghost Rider plus an additional card on that final turn to resummon your Agatha. And so depending on which one it drops, we'll see what kind of play line that goes with. We draw their Red Skull. They could potentially have our Sarah, or they could potentially have our Agatha here, but they also could have Lady Sif, which would be I think a dud for them. Taskmaster would be pretty nice for them. They could copy a Red Skull. Jubilee doesn't feel great. It feels like that would be a gamble. And so let's go ahead and do Wave. That will let us know right away whether they drew into our Agatha or not. Hopefully she plays into the middle. No, she doesn't. Oh, we're probably going to have our Wave destroyed here. Unfortunately, we will have either a Taskmaster play on the follow-up turn, so on turn 5, to copy the 14 power from Agatha, or we could always go with the Sarah into a final turn, like, I don't know. It could be a final turn like Lady Sif and Red Skull, but that doesn't feel great. So I think they're probably going to be pushing 14 power onto the board here. That confident snap tells me that they have something big. No, it's a Red Skull. Interesting. So we could potentially Shang-Chi that and get a good amount of upside from it. We do draw into Shang-Chi here, which is beautiful. Let's go ahead and drop our Taskmaster here. They did not draw into our Agatha, so maybe they drew into a Taskmaster. So maybe we Taskmaster into Hellfire Club so that we can use our Shang-Chi on to their Taskmaster. I'm assuming that they drew our Taskmaster. And so let's go ahead and do Taskmaster onto the left-handed side. They probably run an Enchantress at some point, but this gives us some flexibility. We can either swing the hollow location with something like a Shang-Chi, potentially. I don't know. That is what we're going to go with. I expect them to have one card here and it be a Taskmaster. Either that or they destroy the hollow location on this follow-up turn. So there's the Taskmaster. So the only issue right now. So they played the Taskmaster into a lane that they haven't already won. So now they have to play 2 cards on this turn to be able to push more power. They could do it, because all they have to do is drop 1 power here and 1 power here. So they could drop a Nova. They could drop any number of things, honestly. That's tough. I don't think this is worth an 8-cube gamble. If I was not already at cap and I had not gained like 40 ranks today, this should be a solid retreat. We're going to gamble anyways. Let's go ahead and lock in the red. So I'm guessing they didn't have enough power to push a card into the left and the right lane. Thankfully. They were so close in power in both of these lanes that it could have easily been that they were able to push power into both of those to swing them. Luckily, we're going to take that 4-cube win. I thought we had lost that one. I really did. We were just going to gamble on it. We will take the 4-cube and we will continue our push. All right, so next up we have Dapper Beagle, and we did actually just drop a game to Dapper Beagle just a second ago. Now, I snapped because on turn 1 we got the Daily Bugle. Very, very large chance that I guess not large chance. It's a 25% chance that they drew into our Agatha, and then that was going to start taking control over navigating their deck. And so after the snap, either they didn't get something great, or they drew into our Agatha and they didn't want it to continue. I'm not going to count that as a game. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Iron Man, and we did go on like a 5 or 6 game loss streak. They weren't very big losses, but we lost enough in a row that I did take a step back. I took about 5 minutes, got something to eat, got something to drink to kind of refresh, to make sure that we're not playing from a place where we're kind of tilted into making bad decisions. And so we're gonna come back, fresh eyes. Hopefully we have a good game, because this deck list it has decks that it does really well against. So like Destroyer decks, it does really, really well. But if the meta shifts into a wide Wong, which we've been seeing a lot of those, it doesn't perform as well because it's not able to keep up with the spread of power that those deck lists offer. And so turn 2, we are going to skip. We don't have anything in hand to be able to get rid of our Agatha on turn 3, unfortunately. And so we just have to hope that we top deck into wave. And so Fortune is looking a little bit better. Is looking a little bit better. Let's go ahead and play our wave. That will allow us to drop our Agatha next turn. Hopefully we drop Agatha into the flooded lane. That would be huge. That would be really hard for them to come up over and win that much power. Beautiful Agatha. Thank you for having at least that much logic. Now, if they have an Iron Man, if they have a Juggernaut, they will push Agatha out of the lane, but I think we go ahead and snap here. They could have a Shang-Chi. They could, I don't know. It looks like maybe, I don't know what they're running. Maybe like a counter-heavy deck, a control-style deck. I don't know for sure. But knowing that we're going to have a big 14 power play on this turn, I think we do go ahead and lean into it. Well, it looks like another loss in the tally. Let's go ahead and play it. We're going to play our Taskmaster to the left. That protects us from a potential Professor X. I don't think that's what they run here, but I don't know why they're running the Daredevil. Maybe a Hobgoblin. I don't know. That's my best guess. We're going to get smashed by Iron Man. All right, so our Taskmaster comes down. It copies the 16 power of our Agatha. They drop a rescue. Can we beat their power if they drop a rescue? We don't have initiative going into this turn. I think it's worth a shot. If they play a card here, we'll be able to hit it with a Shang-Chi unless it's a Professor X at this point. But if they buff this one up, that will be within Shang-Chi range. If they have a Shang-Chi, they can swing this lane regardless. I think we have to lean into the Shang-Chi piece of it. That is what we're hoping for. Not having initiative here will help us out by allowing them to drop a card first. And so they drop a Captain Marvel into a 0. We're going to kill their rescue. Their Captain Marvel, even if it moves over to the left, it still will lose the game because it will lose Hellfire Club. We win Xandar by 11. They win mid by 1. And so we were barely able to squeak out the win. Finally. Let me count how many games that was. It took us 6 games to find that win. So it took kind of stepping away, kind of getting out of our own head, going back into a strategic thinking state. You don't want to snap and play aggressively whenever you are on a loss streak, especially if you feel like maybe your play has been compromised. Sometimes it's best to step away, come back with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh head. All right, so next up we have Sevturion. All right, so next up we have Sevturion, and Agatha doesn't play Quicksilver to his death, which is kind of phenomenal. Hopefully she won't play Wave to her death either. That's all we can hope for, really. Let's go ahead and skip on turn 2. We never have a turn 2 play unless we just get a random element. They do have Daredevil, so they'll be able to see what we play on 5, but hopefully by then we have enough of a power push that it won't matter. Let's go ahead and snap. Agatha's not going to play herself, or Agatha's not playing Wave into Murder World, which is good. That means we're not going to lose any of our pieces just yet. We will be able to play Agatha into any of these lanes. Next turn, hopefully it goes into Monster Metropolis so that it's the highest power push. But if not, then I think it's okay as well. So they do get a Hood. They're going to have the 6 power demon in hand. That will get rid of their Hood card. And so they get the upside without any of the downside. So we do play Agatha into Monster Metropolis. And so here we're kind of hoping for a Taskmaster top deck. A Taskmaster would be huge. It's going to copy the 17 power Agatha play instead of just the 14 because it will retain those power bonuses that Agatha receives. All right, and so they play a Hobgoblin into Wakanda, which is not great. We can still do a Taskmaster there if we feel like we want to, but that gives them an out for an easy lane lockdown. I think we probably go... we don't have Taskmaster. We either go with a Sarah and we forego this, but I think looking at just these 2 cards that they played, Daredevil and Hobgoblin, they probably have a Destroyer and a Professor X in their list. Let's go for the Gambit. We are going to hope that we pull into a card with Jubilee. We have initiative, so they won't be able to lock this down before Jubilee pulls. They can lock down this lane, it's fine. If we end up losing Wakanda, that's okay. And then we just have to beat 16 power, potential power push in the left or the right lane to find our win condition. So what we're hoping for is a Taskmaster. We have a 1 out of 3. We have a 33% chance of pulling into the correct one. We could also pull into Chavez, which isn't as good, but it's still a decent power push. There's the Chavez. So they do drop the Professor X. So it comes down to a 50-50 read. It depends on where they drop their power. If they push it into the left lane, we could overcome it with a Drax. If they push it into the right lane, that is going to overtake our Agatha. It will retain the Monster Metropolis bonus, and it will get the win in that lane. And so it comes down to a gut check. Do they play it left or do they play it right? Both plays can potentially win, but both plays we can potentially win from as well. We're dropping it into Monster Metropolis. That's a read. We're not going to think over it. Okay, that could be huge. So the Drax will trigger. If this is a destroy... No, it's a demon. And a Shang-Chi. Oh, no. But our Drax is the highest power play in that lane. We actually retain the win. We did not... Take a breath. We didn't deserve that win. That one was a gut check. We got very lucky that they went with a demon and a Shang-Chi that cleared out our Agatha. But by dropping Drax, we were 2 power over the demon, which with Monster Metropolis specifically, that gave us an extra 3, giving us enough power to win. Had this been a neutral lane, we would have lost because our 8 power would have been trumped by their 9. What a way to get 8 cubes. I don't think we're going to get a more fitting end to the video. We're going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. Let me know if you run this Agatha list and what you think about it. And if you want to see more of it, we will be doing a lunch live stream tomorrow. Make sure to join in to see more Agatha plays and plenty of chat with me and the rest of our community. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.